Karla, what is exactly Axe Michigan Tax?
Yep. It's AXMITAX, Axe My Tax. This is to totally eliminate all property taxes in the state of Michigan. So no more property taxes for homes, farms, or businesses. Totally gone. No more millages, right? Because millages are what make up your property tax bill. Without millages that we vote on, silly us, without those millages, we would have no property tax bill, correct?
Wow, none at all?
None.
Huh, okay.
So what's your question? I see you got a question brewing in there. You're going, Karla, what's the replacement revenue? How are you going to fund our police and fire?
Well,
right?
Sort of. I guess I didn't realize that every property tax was based on a millage that was voted on. That's just wild to think about.
Okay, so think about that. Think about your property tax bill. What is on your property tax bill? Line item by line item.
Yeah, I look at it.
They're all millages.
Yeah.
Right? Every single one of those is a millage.
Yeah, I just never thought about that. I always think of, I guess I always pictured it as the base amount that everyone has to pay, and then there's the school district on top of that.
But we vote on those millages.
Yeah.
We vote on those.
Yeah. Excuse me. I just never thought of it like that. Like every one of those was at one time voted on and said, yes, let's do this. And it's only expanded.
And yeah. And, you know, I have a supervisor here in my township. I'm in Kent County, Cannon Township. So when I do presentations, I bring along my own property tax bills and a budget from the House Fiscal Agency in Lansing, because we're dealing with a state budget, we're dealing with the county budget, and we're dealing with the township budgets. There's 3 government entities that receive money from our property tax bill. Okay. Mm-hmm. State receives 1. It's called the state education tax. That's all the state or the Lansing, I want to say the Lansing government or the state government only receives the state education tax millage from our property tax bills. It goes directly, all of the money gathered at the state education tax bill goes into the public school aid fund. But the public school aid fund is currently $20 billion. The state only receives $2.7 billion from our property taxes. So $20 billion bucket, only 2.7 comes from our property taxes. Where does the other 17.3 billion come from? All of the other taxes we pay. Corporate business tax, state income tax, sales tax, use tax, alcohol, marijuana, tobacco tax, lottery, real estate transfer tax. So without our 2.7 billion or our state education tax, if we were to eliminate that, the public schools will be just fine, because there's all of those other taxes that still fund the public schools, and they are grossly overfunded. We know this, right? Admin costs have gone up 73%. Attendance has dropped more than 15%. So why, if we're losing kids, why are we adding more admin? Why are we still building schools? The city of Grand Rapids at one time talked about closing 10 public schools in the city of Grand Rapids alone.
Recently?
Yes. Rockford just closed a school. They built a school, and then they said, because they built a school, right? Why would you build a school? Because you need it for more kids, right? Now they're closing a school. So think about that. But in the meantime, we all voted for a millage that's on our property tax bills. We're still funding those schools.
Yeah.
And when we're as long as we're on the subject of schools, I see all the time people make comments. You have to vote yes on the school millages if you love your kids. If you love your kids, you're going to vote yes on those school millages. Well, your local school millages, look at your property tax bill. What does it say? Mine says Rockford Public School building and site. Site meaning the grounds that the building is on, right? SITE. Building and site. Where in there does it talk about education? Doesn't, right? And then I have another one. Rockford Public Schools, parks and rec. Parks and recreation. Where does that say anything about education? It doesn't. We have Rockford debt. And then we have Rockford operating. My 4 local school millages have nothing to do with the education of the kids. That's why you have that one millage that goes to the state called the state education tax. So that one millage, the state education tax, that is what educates our kids. Goes to the state. It's in a large bucket there. That is the bucket that the state distributes money to the schools based on attendance on counting day. Certain kids, schools on the east side of the state get a lot more money than schools on the west side of the state because they say they are economically challenged. We are not. So we have more money here on the west side of the state. Towns are maybe less debt, a little more affluent. Our kids get less money. The east side of the state, kids get like Detroit, Flint, etc. They get more money out of that bucket, right? We had a House representative that is probably at some point going to introduce a bill to eliminate that state education tax. Because even in Lansing, our legislators recognize the fact we don't need that tax. We don't need that millage on our property taxes anymore, and we can eliminate it. Now, we're trying to eliminate all of it, right? We're trying to eliminate all of the property taxes. But if he can eliminate that first through legislation, hallelujah, right?
Yeah.
But more than anything, he's proving to people that even Lansing agrees with us. The legislators in Lansing agree with us that we are being taxed out of our homes. The government is wasting money. The schools are wasting money, right? But they don't need that. And Lansing and the people in Lansing can prove that we don't need that money, and we shouldn't be paying the tax on that.
Wow.
So your local public school millages have nothing to do with the education of the kids, and you're paying for playground equipment and football fields, and you're at the risk of losing your home, right? Because if you don't pay your property tax bill, what happens? Your house goes into foreclosure, and you lose your home, you lose your farm, or you lose your business because you no longer can afford to pay one of those millages that you or someone else voted yes on. So if you said, I always vote no on every single millage, well, you know what? You're being outvoted, and there's a whole bunch of people out there that are voting yes on those millages. That you say, I can't afford it. I'm going to vote no on that millage. I don't agree with it. I don't want it. I don't use it, and I can't afford it. Well, if one more person in your community votes yes, you've just all been saddled with a whole bunch of debt. Going back to that point, when I have parents that say, you have to vote yes on these millages. If you love your kids, you'll vote yes on these millages. It's for their education. No, they're not. But here's what I like to tell people. If you love your kids and you're tempted to vote yes on those school millages, please reconsider, because what you're going to do is saddle your kids and your grandkids with 30 years of debt. 20 years, 20-year millages, 30-year millages, 15-year millages, 10-year millages, 5, right? My oldest grandson is 18. He'll be 48 years old. He's just graduating. He'll be 48 years old before that 30-year millage is paid off. Think about that. He's already out of school. He's out of school now. So this is a school millage that is going to affect him until he's 48 years old.
And there will be other ones put up and voted for.
And there's going to be constantly. We have preloaded. We have, by voting on all of these millages, we have preloaded our kids' debt. They will never be able to afford a home. I cannot sell a house to people younger than 35 because they're not established enough. They don't make enough money. It's not the mortgage. It's not the bank loan that they can't pay. It's the property tax is what makes housing unaffordable for these kids. They will never own a home. I want my grandkids to be able to afford a home. They won't be able to.
Yeah, and to not move away from you too, just to be able to. Yeah.
Just to be able to, right? They're going to, and you know what? When you are a renter for your entire life, you never build equity or generational wealth, right? Because if you're renting, if you buy a house and you say, okay, I bought this house and it's $200,000, and in 30 years when I go to sell it, it's going to appreciate, right? Yes, you pay, but it appreciates. So at the end of that 30 years, you have an appreciable asset that is worth more than what it was when you bought it. Correct? Not so with rent. Rent goes up, but you're not building any equity in that rent. You're paying it to a landlord. He doesn't save anything for you. He doesn't say, hey, I'm going to put $20 a month away for you. And when you leave my apartment, I'll hand you that. No, that doesn't happen. Okay.
Yeah.
So our kids will never build any kind of an asset. They'll never have equity to draw on if they need to send their kids to college or something like that. They'll not be building up equity in that house to do anything like that. Okay. So you look at how horrible that is and people not thinking about that debt that we agree to. I mean, seriously, I'm 64. I could say I'm going to vote yes on a 30-year millage, but in 2 years I'm going to retire and move to Arizona. Okay, but I voted on a 30-year millage. I don't take that millage with me. I leave that here for you to pay, right? I paid on the first 2 years. You guys get to pay the balance of the 28 years. So renters do that too. Renters like to vote yes on millages because they don't think it really affects them. But then as soon as a millage passes, the rent goes up. Why? Because when you vote yes on a millage, you raise your landlord's property taxes. Guess what? He's going to come back and raise your rent because you raised the property taxes. So that's economics 101. He has a margin that he wants to make on his rental units. If his costs go up, your rent's going to go up. Stop doing that to yourself. Do not whine to me that your rent has gone up when you've done it to yourself because you think, hey, I'd love to have a new library 5 miles from my house. Oh, I want to have a new hippopotamus at the zoo. I want these things. Okay. Well, honey, you got to pay for them too. You have to pay for them too. And if you already are complaining that rent is too high, you better rethink. Do you need a roof over your head or do you need that hippopotamus at the zoo? Which is, there's choices to be made here. Homeowner, we have to make those choices every day. Am I going to eat steak Friday night for dinner or hot dogs? You look at your budget and you go, it's going to be hot dogs again this week, right? We have to do it. The government does not do it.
Yeah.
People are not, we have debit cards. People don't even know how much money they have in the bank account. They just swipe the debit card, right? Or the credit card. Nobody pays attention to money anymore. Nobody pays, attention to whether there's enough money to pay for these things. And our government is the worst at it. The government spends and then turns around and says, you all got to pay for, we went on a spending spree. Ante up, people, you got to pay for it. They keep raising taxes.
Yeah. Anyone who listens to my show long enough knows that I feel all taxation is theft. And whenever I go to pay my property tax twice a year, I write in the memo line summer theft and winter theft, and I hand it to the lady. And sometimes they see that little note, that little protest that I do. Sometimes they don't. But so obviously, let's do some basic objections to this whole plan. How are we going to pay for things? We need fire trucks. We need policemen. We need to plow the roads in the winter. what you're first blush, what you're suggesting would lead to chaos.
No, it leads to liberty.
How
It
so?
leads to liberty and freedom, and it leads to financial freedom for a lot of people. So our proposal, we have a petition, a citizens initiative petition. So what is a citizens initiative petition? What we have is a petition that is being driven by the citizens. We do not need the legislator's approval. We do not need the governor's approval. If we get enough signatures to put it on the ballot and we get enough votes, they have to put it into play. This is a constitutional amendment to stop every level of government, township, county, and state, from taxing and taking our property. Okay? That's what the Citizens Initiative does. So when you ask about those very important things, the essential services that our government is supposed to give us, police and fire, okay? In our proposal, we have set aside a certain amount of money. Every township, there's 1,240 townships in the state of Michigan. Every township currently, it's happening today, it's been happening for many years, receives a portion of the sales tax bucket. Okay, so every business that collects sales tax across the state of Michigan, we send it to Lansing. I know, I have a restaurant and I have a retail. So every month or every quarter, I have to take the sales tax I've collected from the sale of goods, send it to the state. Okay, every business across Michigan has to do that. It goes to Lansing and sits in this big bucket. Every year, based on the population in your township, the state sends a check back to the townships. It's a portion, it's a formula. It's a portion of the sales tax bucket based on population. So my township is Cannon Township in Kent County. We have 14,400 people based on the last census. We receive a little bit more than $1.5 million as our portion of that sales tax bucket. Our petition increases that portion. We're not increasing the sales tax rate. We think our sales tax rate can still be 6%. We're not increasing the sales tax rate. We're only increasing the bigger, we want a bigger chunk of that bucket. We want more money out of that bucket to go to the townships. So the state will have less to spend foolishly, and our townships will have more money to spend on essential services, essential police and fire, okay? We're also taking a chunk of the largest bucket. The largest source of revenue to the state is the state income tax bucket. We are asking for a 10% cut of that bucket to go down to the counties to help fund their essential services. We are also taking a chunk of the alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco taxes. Those buckets are all separate buckets. We want a 10% cut of each of those buckets as well to go to the townships and the counties to help fund essential services. And our petition says essential services only. Not parks, not pickleball courts, not walking trails. Those are not essential. If a community wants those things, the community should get together and everyone in the community should participate in paying for those things. It should not be on your property tax bill or my property tax bill. Hell will freeze over before I allow my house to be taken over a pickleball court. Because that can happen. Mm-hmm. Because my township has a Parks and Recs millage on my property tax bill. Which of the millages can people not afford? When your house goes, why does your house go into foreclosure? You can't afford your property tax bill. What's on your property tax bill? all of those millages. Which one is it that put you over the edge? Which one is it that you can't afford? Correct?
Yeah. That's a good way to think about it like that. Like that
Absolutely.
random park is more important than your house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like I tell people, I love books. I don't want to close the libraries down. But if I don't have to pay $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 a year in property tax, if I don't have to pay that property tax bill anymore, I would gladly pay $150 a year for a library membership card.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you do to the gym. If you want to go to the gym, if you don't want to run outside in the wintertime and you want to exercise and you buy a gym membership, why can't you buy a library membership?
Mm-hmm.
You pay admission when you go to the zoo. You pay admission when you go to the museum. Why are they on our property tax bills as well? Because they are losing entities. They operate in the red. They do not sustain themselves. So we are sustaining them through our taxpayer dollars. But I am going to lose my house for the monkey in the zoo. I quite often tell people, show me the book in the library that's worth someone losing their home. You seriously, we're going to make people homeless because they can't afford the library millage? Can they go live in the library? Not in Marquette anymore, because Marquette said homeless people can no longer be in public places.
Mm-hmm.
So you're creating homeless people, and now you're going to create a bill to keep those homeless people out of certain areas in your town. Maybe you should have just left them in your house.
Yeah. Do you have numbers on how many people lose their house in Michigan based on taxes alone?
We have in Michigan, and this was a number from like 2022, I think. We were averaging roughly 180,000 privately owned properties a year in Michigan alone. We're entering into a tax lien seizure process, which means there's a mortgage where you owe the bank, a tax lien you owe a government entity, right? These are tax liens. Now, these could be vacant lots, they could be homes, they could be farms, they could be businesses. Any privately owned property where people were not paying the taxes. So, a lot of them are homes. Go look at Wayne and Oakland counties. Look up their foreclosures. It's stacks of paper like this. Single-lined, double-sided paper, stacks of sheets of paper with their foreclosures. I talked to a lady up in Presque County, up near, upper lower Michigan. When I talked to her, it's not a very big county, not a very high population. She said, Karla, we currently have 488 homes on the foreclosure list.
Wow.
This is happening all over Michigan. It's happening all over the United States. Other governors are starting to do something about it. Governor Palin in Nebraska, he cut their property taxes at the state level because he said we can't afford the mass exodus out of our state due to property taxes. Governor DeSantis is talking about it. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's running for governor in Ohio. He's talking about addressing property taxes. North Dakota had it on their ballot, just couldn't get enough votes. But Indiana and Illinois, not the most conservative states, they're even addressing property taxes. Why? Because it's going to be the death of us. You listen to President Trump right now is talking about trying to bring manufacturing not only back to the United States, but specifically to Michigan, because Michigan was the forerunner of mass production. We had Henry Ford, right? Back in the 20s and the 30s, we had Henry Ford. We had production lines. We had the auto industry. Michigan was the leader at one time with manufacturing. We've lost all that. We're now having to pay companies to come to Michigan, pay them to come to Michigan, and then we forgive them property tax, right? The plant up in Goshen gave them $750 million and said, you don't have to pay property taxes for 30 years. Guess what happens in 30 years? They close down.
Yeah.
They pack up and move because they don't want to pay property tax.
Yeah.
Because it eats into their profit.
Mm-hmm.
But the small businesses that are registered to be open here in the state of Michigan, they all have to pay property taxes. Think how many small businesses closed during COVID. Why? Because they still had to pay property taxes and had no revenue coming in. You can't do business that way. You can't operate that way because for some of these small businesses, it's a huge chunk of money.
Yeah.
If we don't have corporations, so half of the corporations in Michigan don't pay property tax.
Half.
So that's a problem, right? Because look at that's corporate favoritism. How do you have some paying, some not? And who's picking the winners and the losers, right? Somebody that wants to fill their war chest full of money so they can make a presidential run.
Yeah. Just a crazy idea. Yeah.
Maybe, who knows? But when you're giving away that many dollars in property tax, are they really necessary?
Yeah.
Why do I have to lose my house when here's a big corporation over here that can pass the taxes through to the customers? Because that's what happens, right? If you raise everything I do, I have to factor property taxes into the cost of my. If I'm going to sell you bacon and eggs, you are helping me pay my property taxes because property taxes are part of my overhead. So when I factor that, when I set the price of the bacon and eggs, it includes my property tax cost, right? So here's a corporation that has the ability to pass that cost onto its consumers, and yet they don't have to pay property tax. But my house, I have to pay property tax on my house. I have nothing to pass that through to somebody else, and I have to pay or risk my house. This corporation doesn't have to pay. I have to pay. I'm going to lose my house. They don't have to pay. And they can sell their product cheaper than this corporation over here because this corporation's paying property taxes and this one's not. You think about our farms and our farmers live on their business, right? If they have an apple orchard, a lot of times they live on the property that is also where their apple trees are, right? We're losing our farmland. You all hear it. You should look into it. We're losing our farmland left and right. Why? Because of property taxes. These farmers cannot afford the property taxes on, imagine property taxes on 500 acres that you need to make a living, right? On 1,000 acres that you need to make a living, depending on what kind of crops or animals or whatever it is that you're growing or raising. You have to make a ton of money to pay those property taxes. They do get some programs, but you know what? Where does that program money come from? Taxpayers. So we're charging them property taxes, and then we're giving them money back in a program to help them pay those property taxes. And that program money is coming from us. How stupid? I mean, seriously, how stupid is that?
Well, government needs programs and workers, and they need all that stuff to move money from one pocket to the other.
That's all it is. It's money laundering. That's all it is. Let the farmer keep his property tax money, and then we won't have to give him money to help him pay his property tax.
That's too simple. Too simple.
You think? So when we now have farmers that can't afford to sell their house. I mean, look, if they can't afford their property taxes and they want to sell their property, who is going to be able to pay the property taxes on a 500-acre farm?
I know.
When the cap comes off.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what happens. When you sell your property, If you've lived there, maybe you're the 5th generation farmer. Maybe you and your family have owned that property since Michigan became a state in 1837. Who knows? But if you lived there for a long time, your property value is going up, but it started really, really low, right? Because you've owned it for so long. Property values keep going up. When you go to sell that property, it now becomes taxed at the current value.
Mm-hmm.
Who another farmer can't pay those taxes.
No.
Who are you going to sell your land to?
Exactly. A developer or a
No.
solar power
No.
place.
The state.
Yeah.
The state. The state comes in and says, we have all kinds of taxpayers that are paying taxes, and so we're going to come and buy your farm because we can afford it, because all of these people can help us afford to pay those taxes, if they even pay any. The state might buy the farm for a solar farm or for a wind turbine and will pay very little in property tax.
Mm-hmm.
But we're losing our farmland. Who's going to grow our food? What do you need wind and solar for if you're not growing anything? All right? I mean, I grew up on a farm. God always provided the wind and the sun and the rain that we needed. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some years it was better than others. Maybe some years it was hot and dry. Maybe some years it wasn't, but it all worked out, right? Why do we need solar? We don't need solar and wind. We need food. We need food.
Yeah. So how?
And we're losing that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I see some of these old farmers, and I think, boy, is anyone going to be able to buy this huge farm and afford it? It's just incomprehensible. So how does this work, though? So you said that you don't need a legislator to sign on to this, correct, for your plan?
Correct.
Okay, so
Correct,
then,
because it's a citizens initiative petition.
okay, so then what is the process? You have a time limit where you need this done by? I mean,
Yes.
how can people help? Is it a signature thing?
Yes, signatures. So we have to collect 600,000 signatures in 180 days. We
Okay.
started April 1. That number, all of that is set by the Board of Canvassers or the Board of Electors, whatever they call themselves. I'm not sure. So they set the rules on, this is how many days you have. This is how many signatures you have to collect. This will go on the November 2026 ballot, along with the governor. You know, when we're have a gubernatorial governor's race, and that will be on November 2026. So what we're doing right now is raising awareness. We are circulating. We started circulating petitions April 1. We need more people to help us circulate those petitions. So if they go to the website, the axmitax.org, they can sign up to be a volunteer. We will get petitions in their hands so that they can help us collect signatures. We have petitions in probably 78 of the 83 counties in Michigan right now.
Oh,
But we need to find the people, right? I mean, we don't know who people are. We don't know where people are. We need them to, like you, you're helping us reach more people, right? By doing this podcast. So I've done a lot of podcasts. I've done radio interviews. I do presentations all across the state, mostly to educate people about why they should vote no on every single millage. Vote no. Vote no. The money is there. We just need to force them to reprioritize and reappropriate the money that they are already getting from us. Because there's no services on our property tax bill that is worth anyone losing their home over.
amen.
No one should lose their property because of one of those services. None of those services are so important that someone should be taken off their land, have their business be shut down, right? Businesses get shut down, people go into foreclosure, we lose our farms because of one of those millages on our property tax bills. That's what causes foreclosure.
So I think you've done a great job of explaining all this, and really thank you for coming on and talking about it. As someone to me who's very sympathetic. But how did you get involved in this? Has this been a lifelong struggle for you, or one day you just
Well,
got sick of writing that check and
yeah,
decided
yeah,
to do
one day.
something?
Well, I think it really because you know what, property taxes have gotten. I think there's a combination of things because of the inflation that we've experienced since COVID, like in the last 5 years. The inflation that we've experienced has driven our property taxes up the full 5% a year that the Headley Amendment allows. Correct? They here in Michigan, we're so fortunate for that Headley Amendment because it allows our property values to only increase by 5% a year. Okay, at just normal. Okay, so but due to inflation, it used to go up 1%, 1.5%. People it hardly registered,
Yeah.
right? It was just a little tiny bleep. But because of inflation, the last couple of years, we've really seen our property values, the assessed value, have spiked. Okay, so you have that, and then you have what I think are some very greedy entities like our school districts, very greedy, wanting more and more money. Oh, we need another millage. Oh, we need another school. Oh, we need another this. We need another that. We need more money. Ottawa County, one of their school districts, I think it's a $88 million millage. $88 million. 30 years. $88 million, 30 years. I don't even think they're building a new school. It's just to make improvements. $88 million. Some of these school districts, they graduate 12 to 18 kids a year. They're small. And they sign up for 44 to 48 million dollar bonds, proposals. How can they can't afford that? They have such a small, tiny community. But we've had the inflation has gone up, right? And then we have what I call greedy entities out there saying, well, let's just add another millage. Let's ask for more money. Let's make the library millage. Let's do it for 15 years. Let's do this millage for 30 years. Let's do this. So we have that. We have so much wasteful spending. Look at what President Trump is doing at the federal level. The federal government is wasting trillions of dollars. Trillions. Our state government is wasting billions of dollars. Our county governments are wasting millions of dollars, and our townships are wasting hundreds of thousands of dollars. The waste is proportionate to the size of the government. There's waste everywhere. Believe me, there's waste everywhere. I've seen it.
Yeah.
All of these things were coming together. And then what happened? COVID. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I'm a licensed builder. I have a contractor's license. I had my securities license, which meant I could do stock trading and financial planning. I prepared income tax returns for about 12 years. I now own a little restaurant and a little retail. So I'm in restaurant, retail, real estate, building. During COVID, I was totally shut down. There was not one thing. Everything I did was non-essential. We had no income coming in, but my property tax dollars were essential, right? Because you still had to pay those. Everybody still had to pay that, even though you had no revenue coming in. The big box stores could stay open. The corporations, right? Liquor stores stayed open. Why did the liquor stores stay open? Because that's where the state gets a whole bunch of their money. What do liquor stores sell? Alcohol? That's a state license, right? You get Michigan liquor license. So the state was making money off liquor, alcohol, tobacco. Don't a lot of liquor stores sell a lot of cigarettes and tobacco products, right? And lottery tickets. So you think about why was a gas station and a liquor store able to stay open? because that's where the state got a lot of their revenue from.
Hmm.
But if you owned a little grocery store, you might have been closed down. If you had another, right? Okay, so you're following me there. So all of these things are coming together. And then during COVID, when I had to stop everything that I was doing, and I thought, holy crap, what is going on? Look at how high everything has gotten. Look at how expensive everything has gotten. That when you stop and think about it, or you stop and those bills catch up to you when you have no revenue coming in, you stop and you think about it and you go, okay, I had real estate clients. I had people that owned rentals. What happened during COVID? Renters didn't have to pay rent, right?
Mhm.
Remember that? Remember that? If you're a renter, you don't have to pay rent, because no one should worry about losing their home. Governor Whitmer said that. She was talking to renters. She wasn't talking to us, because we still had to pay our property taxes. The landlord still had to pay his property taxes, but the renters didn't have to pay rent. How does that work? How does a landlord pay anything? How does he pay building maintenance? How does he pay insurance on the building? How does he pay the utilities? How does he pay property taxes when he has no rent coming in?
Yeah.
So think about that, right? So all of that stuff is happening, and that really made, I think, I have elderly parents now. We watch their property tax bills go up. We watch more millages being voted on by people other than themselves. Those people are forcing our elderly seniors out of their homes.
Hmm.
If you're in your income making years and you're raking in the dough and you go, okay, I'll pay my property taxes, it's my civic duty. Okay, but can this young couple on this side of the road, on this side of your house, can they afford it? They're just starting out. Can these elderly people on this side of your house, can they afford it? They're in their sunset years. Their pension and their Social Security is not keeping up with the rise in property taxes. And you in the middle, because you think your life is going along swimmingly, you just forced both of them out of their houses.
Hmm.
They have to sell because you wanted the convenience of a library. So I have elderly parents, can't afford to stay where they are, even though they've been there many, many years, but they can't afford to move, because if they move, they're going to buy and pay property taxes at today's value,
Mhm.
at today's prices, right? Like I've already said, I haven't been able to sell houses to people younger than 35 because of the property taxes and the insurance.
Hmm.
So when I stopped and actually was able to stand back and look at everything, I thought, holy crap, this isn't just happening to me. This is happening to every single person in the state of Michigan. This is happening to our farmers, which I grew up on a farm. This is happening to our businesses. Other businesses just like me are going through the same issue, having the same issues. We saw how many businesses closed during COVID, small businesses, because you're being hit by your property taxes on your home and your property taxes on your business. And when your business is shut down, you can't pay your business's expense, nor can you pay your home's expenses, right? Shut the business down, file bankruptcy, pick up and move, go somewhere else, do something else, right? That's what happened. And I just sat back and I said, whoa, if we don't do something about this, we will all be renters, or we will all move out of the state of Michigan. We are losing our state. We are losing our state. I don't care how much they try to convince you that the Michigan economy is going gangbusters. No, the hell it isn't. Go and look at the numbers. We are losing revenue. We are losing income tax revenue. We are losing sales tax revenue. If you compare the last year's budget to this year's budget, not budget, but revenue coming in, it's dropping. It's dropping. Why? Because we've lost so many businesses. We've lost so many people out of our state that our revenue is dropping. What happens? You're just going to get taxed more. The taxes are going to go up. to replace that lost revenue. While Governor Whitmer tries to find out, how do I bring more business back to Michigan? Well, she's paying businesses to come here, and then she forgives them property tax. Why don't we say no more property taxes in Michigan? Businesses will come here because it will be economically feasible for them to set up shop here. When businesses come back, jobs will come back, people will come back. We earn more corporate business tax, more state income tax, more sales tax. People will buy more lottery tickets. We will buy and sell more homes, and we will generate more real estate transfer taxes, more lottery, more. We will sell more alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco, which is whether that's a good thing or not. All of those income buckets will increase far beyond what we're paying in property taxes. But property taxes take our property. We have to maintain private ownership of our property, or we will all become renters and tenants of the state. We do not want, that is a socialist program. That is what they have us, that is the path they have us on right now. You will all be tenants of the state. You're all going to get an X amount of dollars to spend, right? We're going to control the heat in your house. We're going to give you an EV so you can only go 30 miles away because you don't need to go any farther.
Yeah, and this is what the New World Order types,
World
Soros, this is
economic.
what this is what they want, and obviously states like Michigan or governors like we have, they're all in for it. Man, this is I'd heard about this proposal and it sounds great. I hate paying taxes, and I wanted to find out more about it. And I think you've done a good job educating us what it is. And it's not like you just get rid of the taxes. We don't want to pay them because I don't want to part with my money. I mean, this is well thought out reasons for this, and I mean, it would only benefit because less taxes mean more economic activity. This is a basic fact that people on the left, Democrats, don't want to admit, even though it's been proven time and time again.
When the people prosper, the state will prosper.
Yes.
Right? When we have more money in our own pockets to spend, we're going to go buy that new car. We're going to go buy more clothes. We're going to go on vacation. We're going to do something. We're going to put that money back into the economy. You know, we're going to be able to afford to send our kids to school, whatever it is. When the state has all the money, the state dies. We die. We die. We die off. We move away. We lose our home ownership and we have to go somewhere else. But what's the option? You know, if you lose your home to foreclosure, number one, if you're a senior citizen and you live on Social Security and pension, there's no bank that's going to loan you money to buy another house. If you lost your house through foreclosure, they do not consider pension and Social Security as income to repay a loan. Okay. And if you're middle age and you lose your home to foreclosure, it takes you 7 years to get that bad debt off your record. No bank is going to loan you money because you went through a foreclosure. Young people can't even afford to buy a house. They can't even afford to buy a house, period.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do? You know what? And when you have renters, when your whole community is made up of renters, like all of these affordable housing units. Have you heard about affordable housing? They're going in every county. The state is telling every county commissioner, you have to allow affordable housing. You need to create affordable housing. But what is it? It's multifamily. It's multifamily units. We're being taxed out of our single family homes. Single family home ownership is going to go away. You're going to be taxed out of your single family home, and those tax dollars are going to build an affordable housing multi-unit project, right? So we're trading single family home ownership for multifamily. People will be renting. Renters typically are not a stable workforce. They don't invest in the community. They don't, right? If you are a homeowner and you move into an area because I'm going to work there, I'm going to work at that corporation, I'm going to work for that business, I'm going to buy a home here, my kids are going to go to school here, I'm going to go to church here, I might become a local township official or trustee or something, you're going to be the coach for the little league team in your community. You invest yourself into the community.
Mm-hmm.
Renters do not do that as much because they're more mobile.
Yeah, they could get up and leave easily.
They chase the rent. When your community is made up of all of those renters, you lose your stable workforce that a corporation looks for when they're going to come and build in your community. They're going to take a look around and go, it's not worth the risk to build here because too many transient people. These people come and go. Rent goes up $50, they're gone. Right? They don't have a stable, reliable workforce enough to keep them, to want them to build in that community. So you went back in a roundabout way to your question, how did I start doing this? I saw what was happening. And then I started calling on my legislators and I started trying to meet them in Lansing. I would travel to Lansing and ask them, what is going on? Can you help me? This is what I'm thinking. Can we do something about it? You know, what are your thoughts on this? I couldn't really there's maybe 5 that I could talk to that understand what I'm talking about. I wanted their input. I said, we need to do something. What can you do legislatively? What bills can you pass? What can you do? Because this is what's happening. This is how people are being affected. And they really never weren't interested, wouldn't give me the time of day, didn't understand what I was talking about. So I said, well, we'll write the bill ourselves. So we wrote it the way we saw fit, right? So now it's kind of interesting because some of those same people that didn't want to talk to us, now all of a sudden they want to talk to us. And people say, well, maybe you should do this and maybe you should do that. And I'm like, I'm sorry. The petition has been drawn up. The petition has been printed. It's passed around across the state and it's being circulated. You didn't want to help me when I asked you for your help. So you're going to have to deal with what it is. If we get it passed, you're going to have to deal with it how it's written today. Because that is what we're putting forth. I'm not going to change all this. This is the path that we've been put on. And we're going to go ahead and go forward with it. And along the way, we are educating so many people.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we need to do more. Just like this conversation here. I do presentations all over. They take about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. People have a lot of questions. I'll stay as long as people have questions because this is what people don't understand. This right here. And by the time I get done with a presentation, I would say 95 to 98% of the people sign the petition before they leave that room because they finally understand what are property taxes, what are all of these millage. Go and vote no for every millage. I tell people, get an absentee ballot mailed to your house automatically. Why? Because you need to know that there's an election coming up in your community so you can go and vote no on it. Because it's a millage right now, May 6th, all across the state of Michigan. There's going to be things on the ballot May 6th. Sometimes it's just one thing. It's a school millage. People don't know about it. People don't know about it. If you sign up for an automatic absentee ballot, which you can still vote on election day, get a ballot sent to your house that will alert you to the fact that there is a millage coming up. You better leave your house, get in your car, and go and vote no on that millage, or guaranteed your property taxes will go up even more than where they are today. That's
a good strategy. Good idea. Okay, well, I think I've taken enough of your Saturday morning. I really appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And
it's a complex situation.
Yeah,
it's a complex issue because we're talking about, like I said, 3 budgets. We're talking about a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding, lack of education. You know, people think it's great. Oh yeah, I love my zoo. Okay, but are you willing to risk your house for it? Or can, instead of a zoo millage, why don't they just ask for a little bit higher admission?
Yeah.
Set the admission higher, because how often do you go to the zoo?
exactly.
I mean, I pay probably 90 some dollars a year on my property tax for the zoo.
Wow.
I haven't gone to the zoo since I was in the 3rd grade. So look how many dollars I've spent on the zoo, and I've never used that. I would rather, you know what, charge me $50 to go to the zoo, and I'll take a half a day out of my time, and I'll go to the zoo, and I'll be glad to pay $50, and I probably won't go again for 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rather than
It's all,
automatically paying for it, whether you have a
it's all
choice
in
or
the
not.
numbers. People got to start doing the math, and don't use the new math. Use the old math to figure this out, where their dollars are going.
That actually maths. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so give the website again so we make sure people know it.
Yes. It's AXMI. MI stands for Michigan, right? AXMITAX.org. axmytax.org. That's the website. There's a ton of information on the website. There's also a volunteer form on there so that we can get you to help us circulate this petition. It's so important. We also have a Facebook page that's called axmytax.org on the road. It follows me when I go around and do different presentations. Every once in a while, I'll jump on there with a rant like, all right, somebody asked me this, and I just can't believe I'm still having to explain it again.
Awesome. Well, yeah, go to that website, check it out. I'm going there definitely, and I'm going to do what I can to help because this is critical. I love this state, even though people who run it less than fond of for most of my life, actually. But I love this state, and I hate to see it going down the road it's going. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
We have the best. This is the best state. Yeah. Agriculturally, forest, the forestry that we have here, the water, the fresh water, all of the lakes. We have so much here.
Yeah.
That's why we have to fight to keep it.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, it won't be ours anymore.
Agreed. All right. Thank you, Karla.
Kevin, thank you so much.
Yeah, have a good one.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.